Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Because I'm tall, I'm moderately handsome, but I do mumble when I have to talk fast. So I apologize. We have what in the industry we call a metric shit ton of information to dump on you in the next 20 minutes. So I apologize if I rush through it. I will stick around. I will answer whatever questions you have. I was a little worried about the timing here. We'll see what happens. I told my girlfriend, I said, geez, like 10 minutes, that's not much time. She says, yeah, I don't think you'll have a trouble lasting. Okay. My name is Gregory. Bill Gregory, you can call me either. I answer to both. I've been called worse. I am a professional. I work for a company called the Paciello Group out of Nashua, New Hampshire, US. I am the lone Canadian. I work out of Toronto. I've been working, I'm a former front-end developer. I've been working in and around digital accessibility since about 2008. I've just jumped full-time into accessibility this year. Up until about 3 or 4 months ago, I was still a full-time dev. I get code, I know how it works. I had to author accessible code for the last 5 years of my career, so really it's sort of the structure and the semantics behind accessibility that drew me into working with it full-time. That's my day job. My spare time, I am a recovering rap metal singer. I have 2 amazing daughters that I love to dress up like zombies. And here, I'm going to tell you all, okay? Can we keep this just between us and Twitter? Show of hands. Who can keep a secret? Awesome. Okay, that's enough. I'm a time traveler. I've been to the future, and I look amazing. I got nothing to worry about. Well, except for one thing. I'm destined at some point to have a disability. And this is the serious part of the talk. I don't want to focus, because a lot of attention gets dumped on the blind user when we're talking about disabilities. And that's understandable because it's probably the easiest disabilities to understand. But there's a lot more that we need to focus on. We need to focus on mobility and agility. That's probably the biggest one, keyboard-only users. I want to focus on deaf and hearing impaired. I want to focus on those with cognitive issues. I want to focus on those who are prone to seizures. Flashing banner ads don't do them a lot of favors. I want to focus on colorblind, because a lot of men are, and judging by a lot of your outfits, I think there's some of you are here. Low vision. These suckers, I could burn ants with these things. And of course, the blind user. Okay, but then there's another demographic we need to focus on. The fact that everybody loves something that's going to make their life easier. For those of you who can't see this too well, we've got a picture here. It's been around the internet for a while. I'm sure you've all seen it. Raise your hand if you have. It's got a couple of guys taking an escalator up beside an empty staircase going to their gym. I imagine they just parked their cars in the parking lot so they could go there and run on a treadmill for a couple hours. Work those quads. I guess that'll be me someday, judging by the picture. I like this picture too, though. This is taken last March in New York City. Same kind of deal, right? We've got like 40 or 50 people lined up an escalator with an empty staircase. If you build it, people, they will come. Everybody loves to use accessibility features. That's why when I'm building this code, I always like to assume some level of accessibility. And the way I like to talk about that is, picture your website as a chocolate chip cookie. Raise your hand if you've heard of chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, take that, Yellow Pages. I was just kidding. Yellow Pages is a very important sponsor, and I hope you invited back someday. All right, now picture the accessibility in this cookie. This cookie is your website, okay? The accessibility of this website is the chocolate chips. Now let's bake this cookie, but let's forget to put the chocolate chips in. Let's leave them out of the recipe, all right? And let's bake it, let's go into production with this cookie, let's put it out there, let's release it, and let's have the client come back and say, you know what? This should probably be a chocolate chip cookie. Can we just go back and make that a chocolate chip cookie now? Okay, so what are our options here? We can put some chocolate chips on top. We can push really hard and try to get those chocolate chips in there, and we could probably break the cookie. But that's okay. We'll just melt it back together or something. We'll just bolt on those chocolate chips. At the end of that, is that a chocolate chip cookie? No. Your fail displeases the cookie. That is a pissed off cookie. So what can we do? What, as developers, can we do to make our work more accessible? Because I know how hard it is to convince other people, all right? You know, maybe we can make these ripples ourselves, or maybe these ripples can go outwards, and we can cause waves together. But there's 10 things that I've learned over time that I can do at a code level that I don't have to, you know, I don't have to run by a PM or a client or anything else. This is shit stuff I can do. So I'm gonna give you my top 10 day one accessibility tips. So I guess now it's gonna be 10 tips in 5 minutes. God, I talk a lot about myself. Number one, this is a good one for me, watch your language. Folks, we live in a bilingual country, all right? That language attribute is incredibly important to assistive technology. Otherwise, you've got a screen reader reading French language to somebody, and it sounds like when I try to talk French, which is not French. All right? It's a really easy one. This is another one that should come as a no-brainer to all of us. Semantic markup. I pity the fool that tells me a div is a button. All right? Use elements for their intended purpose. Oh, wow, I got happy fingers. Ah. All right. Just pretend we didn't see this. One more. What's going on? Ralphie's in a... He wants up there, right? This isn't accessible. This is awful. You know what it is? This is a mobility issue, people. I've got shaky hands, so thank you for making fun of my disability. Semantic markup. Let's use these elements for their intended purposes. Let's use buttons as buttons. Let's use lists as lists. Let's use tables as tables. They're fine. I mean, you know, for tabular data, they do the job. That's what they're supposed to do. Make sure your titles are, make sure your pages are titled appropriately and meaningfully, and let's change that title with every page. It's the first thing a screen reader is going to pick up on. Okay, so when you jump to a new page, the first thing a screen reader reads to that user is the title of the page. So if the title doesn't change, they're not going to know that they're on a new page until the content starts to load. And most importantly, let's use headings. You know, H1, H2, H3. These aren't just ways that we can mark up our content and show titles of articles. This is an important navigational tool for people who use assistive technology. The way they can bring up a list of headings and they can drill down through your content based on what they're reading. I like to tell the story of my daughter. She's 7. She can't read very well, but that's probably because she's a zombie. But she can't read very well, but she can eat like a friggin' horse. So when I take her to a restaurant, she doesn't order off the kids menu. I have to read the adult menu to her. So I go down and I'm like, okay, well, I have 2 options at this point. I could read an entire friggin' menu to a 7-year-old, or I can start reading the sections of the menu. I can say, okay, Claire, do we want starters? Do we want salads? I'm kidding myself. Do we want burgers? Do we want pizza? Do we want steaks? Do we want desserts? We can talk about desserts once we circle back to the salads. Okay, so now what I've done is I've read her the headings of this menu. And then she can say, Daddy, I want all of the burgers. Well, you can't have all of the burgers, but you can have the mushroom burger. And then I can drill down through the content. Someone using assistive technology is going to access your code the same way. So those headings are incredibly important. Code order versus tab order, all right? Code order. The order in which the elements are marked up on the page. So, you know, the order you write your HTML in. Simple enough. Tab order. The order that these elements receive focus. These have to match. Keyboard-only users do not understand why, when they're reading your page, they're jumping from here to here to here. This is your website. This isn't Qbert. All right? We don't read a book all over the place. We read it in one logical direction, right? That makes sense. Let's talk about focus. Oh, the two-sided coin of focus. Stay put. All right, let's talk about the CSS focus. For every hover pseudo class, we got to make sure we have that focus pseudo class element. Sorry. And the reason why we do this: hover is bound to the mouse. There's no such thing as a hovering keyboard. That's maybe in the future when I'm totally ripped. I'll tell you. Don't override the outline in your CSS. I know it's really tempting in those resets to get rid of it, but it's really important for people who are using their keyboards. They need that. It shows where they are. And use more than color alone to show focus. Because colorblind folks, they can't see it if you've switched from black to gray or, you know, red to green or whatever your color pattern may be. You know, underline it. And if your client's like, well, we don't want our links underlined, that's fine. Just underline them on focus. Chances are pretty good your client isn't testing your work using a keyboard anyways. Ninja. Let's talk about the other side of this coin. focus, for modals, for tooltips, programmatic focus. Whenever we're opening something like a modal or a tooltip, let's make sure we shift the focus of that cursor to that new object. Otherwise, the screen reader will never pick up on it, right? And also be careful when you're when you're playing with that, because that's a powder keg. I mean, you can really blow up someone's experience if you're taking them out of where they think they are and throwing them up in an error at the top of the page just because you find it's important. There's a time and a place for focus, and just make sure we observe that. Still pop quiz. Who among your desktop users might not be using a mouse? Anyone? Doesn't matter, it's a trick question. It's not up to us to decide that. It could be anybody. For instance, I always tab through forums. Okay? So, test that your work is keyboard accessible. Make sure that any new widgets you put in there, any new plugins you use, anything off the shelf, make sure that it can be accessed through a keyboard. And more importantly, make sure you can get in and out of it. Otherwise, you create a keyboard trap. I stole that from George Zamfir. He's going to be presenting at Screens this week on responsive design and accessibility, and it's going to be awesome, so you should totally go. So yeah, that's what we call the keyboard trap. When you get in and you can't get out, it's like programmatic quicksand. It sucks. Totally wrecks your shoes. Stock skip links. Pretty easy, right? You skip over repetitive blocks of content, and we know that clients really love their superpower navs these days. So this gives the keyboard and the screen reader user an opportunity to skip over this block of content. Because again, this isn't just about the screen readers. They can navigate probably through your headings, but somebody, say I break my right arm. I'm not going to be able to use my mouse, but I can probably use my keyboard to tab through your nav. I'm not going to want to tab through 7,000 nav items. I'm going to want to skip over that. Let's talk about forums. I mean, we could talk forever about forums, but let's just focus on labels and field sets, because that's probably the easiest to go through really quick. Make sure that every input, every control has a label associated to it and bound to it with the proper form. Let's make sure that when we see things like this, we're coding this as a field set with a legend and then labels, not label, 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 because then this guy's just floating off into nowhere and the screen reader is probably looking for an input that doesn't exist. Very important. We're up to 8 already. Let's talk alt text. It's a pretty easy one, right? Let's make sure that whatever text we use for an image that adds to the content adequately and properly describes that image, right? If a picture tells 1,000 words, why are we using 2? That's not paying it back, man. Come on. Let's return that favor. Let's just say we wrote an article called TSA to introduce new security measures. Kick-ass article. It's all about how TSA has got this great new way to make sure nothing illegal gets on the planes. And you find the perfect image to go along with that. Bad alt text for this would probably be something like TSA officer. That does not get across the clenching sensation the rest of us felt when we saw that picture. Did I do it again? God, I'm good at that. All right. Good alt text would probably be something like a TSA agent looking into the camera while snapping on a rubber glove. Now everyone can share in the discomfort. Let's talk about hidden text. Take it from Buster. It's okay to be not, or what is it, unseen and not heard, or something like that? I can't remember. It's been so long. Best way of hiding text off screen is not with either display none or position 9999999. It's we're going to use CSS. We're going to clip it. We're going to use the rect. We're going to clip it down to nothing, and then that way it's still on the screen. The reason why we want to do this is because some assistive technology that will zoom in will try to fit that link that's way off to the side onto the page. So if you've got something that's way over here and your website's way the hell over here, it's going to try to zoom all of that in, which means all of a sudden their zoom text is going to be about this big, which is probably the opposite of what they were trying to do. And the reason we do this on, say we've got like legacy code, SharePoint or something like that, and it's got this awful table nav on the left column that there's not much we can do with. Maybe we can put like a hidden heading there for a screen reader to let them know that that's a nav. Maybe if we've got a search field, we can put a label on that to bind it so they understand. And then probably the final tip I'm going to give you. with 5 minutes over, sorry, is test. And this is what, why this talk is two halves. Because Patrick will walk you through probably the easiest way to test your code. But what we don't want to be is this guy. There are a million free tools out there. Patrick's just going to walk you through probably the easiest to use, and I don't want to hear the excuse anymore, well, I don't have access to screen readers. JAWS, the most popular screen reader out there, runs in 40-minute demo mode. You can use it 40 minutes at a time, absolutely free. All you have to do is reboot your computer. You can do a lot of testing in 40 minutes. NVDA, completely free, open source screen reader for Windows. If you're on Mac, VoiceOver is built right into that, so you've got really no excuse not to turn that on and just try your code once in a while. And with that, I am done. Take that, girlfriend. 15 minutes.